think it was in November 2022 when ChatGPT was unveiled to the world. And ever since that moment, there has been so much excitement about artificial intelligence, but in this case, LLMs. And that was the big buzzword for 2023. Here we are, 2024. And there's something I picked up on from the opening speech of His Excellency, the Prime Minister, and he mentioned, it was brief, but it was interesting, that Qatar are launching your own Arabic version of an LLM called Fanar, which, by the way, means lighthouse, which is a nice name. Seems like a big announcement to me. Tell us more about what Fanar is looking to achieve and how long it's been in the works for.
Thanks, Joumanna, for hosting me today. I think Fanar, maybe I should give or shed a light on the story of Fanar, because the foundation of Fanar actually is based from our research and development community here in Qatar. And it gives us hope that the more that we invest in research and development, the more result that we could see. So the idea of Fanar started from a research institute here in Qatar. It's called the Qatar Computer Research Institute, which we are lucky as a digital community to have such institute here in Qatar. So they started by doing some research about the foundational model and the large language model, and then they develop it step by step till they have reached the status where actually they have a very solid foundational model that the government actually decided to invest on more by providing additional capability on infrastructure and providing more access to data. So we are committed actually to support research in the country, and we are happy to see that the research and development effort here in Qatar actually has led us to this step. And I would invite everyone maybe later on to go and visit QCRI. It hosts, I would consider among the best scientists in the world actually in the AI domain, led by Dr. Ahmed Al-Mgarmed, who is the godfather of AI here in Qatar.
Let me ask you why you think it's important that there are Arabic versions of LLMs.
Every language will have to have its own LLM, and to a certain extent, at a certain stage, we would have to reach a status where we'll have multilingual model. Currently, language-specific models is usually biased to that language or that culture or the data that those models are being trained on.
So the results will differ.
The results for sure would differ, but with a more quantity and quality of data, the results will be, or the biased view would actually be limited. But we need to start something. I think in our region there are multiple initiatives to develop Arabic LLM, and one of them actually that we hope it will dominate at a certain stage is Fanar.
Yeah, yeah. Some people say that there's an AI arms race going on around the world. You've got all of these economic superpowers investing in AI, partnering up, looking at new technologies. What role does the Middle East play?
We would have to look into the capability of each region or each country. I think maybe in US or China, they have much more capability when it comes to semiconductor, for example, manufacturing, to technological development, to resources and research, robust research scientists, unlike our region, for example, where we don't have semiconductor industry that we can build on. So the capability differ, but the capability that I would see the Middle East region can excel in, and being able to operate infrastructure that can support the world need for compute capacity, which is a big problem now. And the race now is to be able to have compute capacity available with pressure on the supply chain globally on that domain. And also on the foundational model, I think we would be able to contribute, and later on in the use cases or application. We have some interesting actually development also on the use case and applications in our region. Maybe not everyone at the same speed, but I would see, always the trio that we complement each other on that. With Saudi Arabia, they are doing a great job. UAE, they are doing a great job, and Qatar also is collaborating with them on that domain.
Yeah. You mentioned semiconductors. The region is not known as a semiconductor hub, but there are other pickaxes involved in artificial intelligence, and the two others that come up are data centers and human capital. You actually need humans to train these machines. But let me just ask you about the opportunity for data centers in the region as well. Yesterday, I was speaking to one of your colleagues, His Excellency, from the Real Estate Authority, and he was talking about how one part of Qatar's plan is to repurpose existing real estate data centers could be a focus. How does that tie in to what you're trying to do as well?
It's within the infrastructure ecosystem that would be required for AI, and Qatar has actually attracted many global players when it comes to data center and also the hyperscalers. We look forward to grow our capacity on data center capacity in Qatar three times more in the next 5 to 6 years, and also to attract more of the hyperscalers, more than what we have to operate from Qatar. And for sure, all the infrastructure that we try to build will not be operated by the government, but by our partners, whether in private sectors here in Qatar or globally. As you know, there are also limitations on access to technology in certain aspects of it.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that 2023 was probably the year that artificial intelligence started dominating the airwaves. I've certainly had many interviews where I've asked about artificial intelligence, but Qatar actually put in a national AI strategy back in 2019 based on 6 pillars: education, data access, employment, business research, and ethics. How do you see AI impacting each one of those individual pillars?
Yeah. If we take, for example, a human capital pillar, everyone globally see AI as a threat. We see it as an opportunity in Qatar, because at the end we have a limited human capital capacity, and in order to introduce efficiencies and increase the output actually of the current capacity, AI would be a major contributor. We see a very limited impact when it comes to sophisticated jobs, but maybe the impact is higher on clerical or administration jobs that comes in the future. I think one of the important pillars that we talked about in the strategy is data. As I always give an example of AI as the restaurant and data is the kitchen. No one would like to go and see the kitchen, and everyone would like to go and eat the food. But the real challenge actually is making sure that the amount of data available is with a certain quality and certain capacity that will enable everyone to innovate in the future of AI. And we have tackled that topic specifically, as we are a small country with a small amount of data, and we introduce a term there. We call it data diplomacy.
Data diplomacy.
Exactly, where we need actually to make sure that we group a number of countries where we can collaborate and share data with, so that we can make sure also that the small countries also will have access to the technology with a certain amount of data that can help them to develop AI applications in the future.
I mean, to continue on your kitchen analogy, the food you eat is only as good as its ingredients. So you've got to have good ingredients. You've got to have good data.
And maybe this is where Fanar would be excelling, because data cleaning, data quality is one of the high priority, or one of the things that our scientist actually is insisting to have good quality data so that the model can be good.
You mentioned the word collaboration. I know that there are other countries in the region also who have come out with their own Arabic versions of LLMs.
Yes.
How important is it that you collaborate amongst each other?
I think we should all collaborate as we sit on a limited amount of data, and at a certain stage we would have to open up together and make sure that those models are open source model where everyone can benefit from them. As in general, if we see the world today, the amount of data that's available in Arabic is very limited. Maybe I can quote a number here. I think the Arabic data on internet maybe doesn't exceed 2 to 3%, which is again a challenge. That would be a bigger challenge when AI comes.
Human capital, you said that it's not an issue in Qatar. What do you do to attract the right talent?
I think the pressure on talents is everywhere, but we started from seeing it from economic perspective. Where do we need the digital economy sector to be, and how much the amount of resources that would be required in order to reach the economic target that we have set for ourselves. So over the coming 7 to 8 years, we should be doubling ICT professionals in Qatar to increase the existing 20,000 to 46,000. So an average increase of almost 100%. We are, to a certain extent, well equipped, that we have great institutions actually that specialize on digital domain, and the amount of graduates that they come, even we face some challenges to retain them, a global challenge, but we are trying to make sure that the critical mass that's required to achieve that economic target is being met by the university outcome, and also by starting some attraction programs that the government has started already. Maybe I can mention a few. The recent introduction of the talent visa. It will be a great tool in order to make sure that the talent would live here comfortably.
Yeah.
And the second thing is Jusur company, which is another vehicle that talent can operate through. And as part of our Digital Agenda 2030, we will be launching a program by beginning of next year, specifically designed to attract digital talent to operate from Qatar.
Right. Oh, well, we spoke about, I guess, public collaboration within GCC. I'm interested to hear, I mean, there are numerous public-private partnerships in place already. To what extent do those public-private partnerships with multinational corporations help push this project forward?
For sure, it helped a lot. Specifically, we need access to technologies that we don't produce. We need access
like the
to
chips.
Exactly. We need access to knowledge that we don't have sometimes. So collaboration is going very well, and we see a very positive result in dealing with multinationals in that domain.
Doesn't matter if it's East or West.
It doesn't matter in terms of knowledge. It doesn't matter East or West.
You spoke about some of the use cases for the AI that you've been deploying, and I know you've also leaned on it heavily also around the World Cup. There were a lot of use cases. So talk us through some of the policies that have been transformed as a product of AI.
Yeah, I think I always give a good example of a crowd management solution that we deployed during World Cup, and that's why many people would see the traffic during the World Cup has taken flow very easily, and we are all nowadays in Qatar enjoying the easy traffic to the extent that we struggle when we travel outside Qatar. And it's all because of the use of technology and the use of technology that enable to forecast how we can manage traffic and how we can move crowd easily in the country. Maybe another interesting use cases that we are working with now is the multilingual AI used within the government. As you know, Qatar is a country that holds maybe more than 130 nationalities. So there are multi-languages that we need to make sure that our ecosystem is capable in handling and interacting with. And hopefully by the beginning of the new year, we'll be launching a multilingual use case that will deal with 5 to 6 languages within the government entity, so that we can interact with all the citizens and residents equally.
Well, we've talked about the language model and we talked about Fanar. To round things up, let me just ask you, what comes next after the language models?
I think what comes next cannot be limited to anything for the time being, but what can make a real breakthrough in the near future is, I think, the compute capacity and how we deal with it. I think the world has exhausted the current compute technology capability in order to serve AI and to serve other complicated problems that exist in the world. I think a big leap will happen if quantum compute would be delivered ahead of time, so that we can start delivering much more complex use cases to resolve much more complex problems.
Well, you were saying to me off record before, offline, I should say, that current use cases are very math-oriented, but in the future we're looking at more physics-oriented answers. So
Sure.
if you want to explain that to the audience.
So I think, you know, we are in a leap time now in technology when it comes to all the technologies that we have dealt with are basically yes or no, or 1 + 1 = 2. Now, the technologies would move us actually to have a level of error that can be accepted and tolerated in the future.
Yeah.
And AI is for sure one of them, as many of the results that we reach through AI, sometimes we don't know how we have reached those results.
That's the 1-minute explanation of what AI does. Your Excellency, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.